I regret to inform your grace that your grace's son fell while hunting a fiend. He died on the spot, along with his squire, his guide, the beaters, his peasant entourage, and his hounds. Whether you found yourself face to face with a fiend, or one of their smaller but equally deadly relatives, the Chort, the outcome is going to be near enough the same no matter how skilled with the sword you may be. The hulking three-eyed beasts resemble stags and rams in regards to their horns, but beyond that the similarities end. For these creatures are relentless killers, packing enough force behind their charges to bulldoze entire villages. Despite the lack of hyperbole in that summary, that isn't even the most bone-chilling aspect of the fiends and chorts, for there is something far more sinister at play, hidden behind the third eye in the centre of their foreheads. Hey guys, I'm Drew, and I'm back with a new installment of my Witcher lore and mythology series. In this episode, I'm going to be taking a look at two fascinating monsters inhabiting the Witcher universe, and I'll be delving a little deeper than just their anatomy and how to fight them, for I believe these particular beasts have a connection to forces of nature far more ominous than the people of the Northern Kingdoms could possibly fathom. Before we get into this theory, let's talk about what is known about the fiends and chorts. Fiends are brawny walking mountains of muscle. These ungulate monsters have antlers much like an elk, though that's about all they have in common. They resemble elk much in the same way werewolves resemble wolves, far larger with stretched limbs and thick muscles. One could quite easily hunt an elk with one well-placed arrow, whereas to a fiend, an arrow is more akin to a gnat bite. The sheer size of a fiend is enough to make them fatally deadly in close quarters, and simply blocking a fiend's path would see armoured knights flattened into the dirt, and villages levelled. Dense hindquarters give fiends the ability to pounce on their prey, and their huge paws could cave in a man's chest without effort. Fortunately for the people of the Northern Kingdoms, fiends generally steer clear of human settlements. They prefer heavily wooded forests, vast swamps, and treacherous bogs. If a traveller finds themselves in fiend territory, they really have nobody but themselves to blame. So, it's clear fiends have quite the reputation when it comes to physical prowess. But that aspect of the creature is not the part you should be concerned about. One look in the bestiary would tell you that it is not difficult to find a creature capable of ripping you to pieces in the hospitable northern realms, and any brave bastards who make a living hunting the hides of colossal beasts know how to win a fight with a wild thing. However, nothing can prepare you for when a fiend opens its third eye. This eye gives a fiend the power to hypnotise its target, disorienting you and extracting you from the real world. We could philosophise about whether this hypnosis has any kind of physical effect on the recipient, or whether it is simply a mesmerising illusion, but real or not, the world will turn to darkness, and the only light you'll see is the burning red of the fiend's third eye, drawing ever nearer as it moves in for the kill. It is this aspect of the fiend's biology that I find fascinating. In almost every way, a fiend is like every other deformed beast in the Witcher universe. It appears to be little more than a rabid animal, a distant relative to the elk and the stag, yet somehow they have a link to the ethereal. In real-world theology, the third eye has always been a mystical, somewhat esoteric symbol of a gateway to spiritual enlightenment. It acts as a pathway to a level of consciousness above that of mortal capacity, a good example being the Hindu deity Shiva. This is where things get really interesting, and I'll tell you exactly why after we're familiar with the other beast in this video, the Chort. Chorts are believed to be related to fiends and have very similar builds. While chorts are smaller than fiends and have the horns of a goat or ram instead of the antlers of a stag, they also possess that uncanny third eye. What's even more unusual is that we don't know whether the third eye of a chort operates in the same way as the third eye of a fiend, as they do not use its power in combat. Horned creatures are herbivores, however the chorts break that mold magnificently, butchering wolves, livestock and humans alike. Chorts are often mistaken for sylvans, most likely due to their horns, but in every other way they are nothing alike. Unlike the bipedal talking sylvans, the chorts communicate through grunts, snorts and moans, and while they are large, they are covered in muscle. Unlike the obese, greedy and mischievous sylvans, these fat beasts are a wonder of their own, with some incredibly unusual personalities, but that's something to get into in another video entirely. Now, we could have quite the debate about which of the two relatives, fiends and chorts, would win in a fight, but a strong argument in favour of the chorts, despite their smaller size and reluctance to utilise their third eyes, is the chort from the town of Lindenvale in Velen. This chort, named Howler, had no intention of sharing his hunting territory with other predators, so in a fratricidal rampage he cleared the area of a pack of wolves and even a fiend significantly bigger than itself. Now if you're going to fight one of these creatures, firstly, good luck. but secondly, you should note the weaknesses and the strengths of both fiends and chorts before the fight. Both creatures attack ferociously, with high speed and a reckless desire to kill, but the key to defeating a fiend is to disable its third eye. You can interrupt the process of hypnosis with a well-timed sign, and you can even permanently damage the eye with a salmon bomb. Fiends hate loud noises, making explosives a stellar choice. With a chort, you can use its predictable nature and aggression to your advantage, baiting a charge and dodging quick enough for it to slam into a wall. The application of relict oil to your blade will work wonders against both fiends and chorts, but be hasty, for they have the miraculous ability to heal wounds rapidly. After some research into real-world mythology and even religious superstitions throughout history, I noticed some really interesting connections between these two beasts of the Northern Kingdoms and real life. The obvious inspiration for fiends and chorts is the chort from Slavic mythology. In the native translation of the Witcher series, fiends are known as bies, and this name is widely considered to be a synonym for chort, so this inspiration would apply to both creatures. Now, the chort in Slavic mythology is considered a demon, and the son of the Slavic god Chernobog, the black god or the evil god. The chort is jet black with horns, hooves, a skinny tail and a pig face. This demon is generally perceived to be the pagan equivalent to Satan from Christianity, but my concern with this mythology is that the chort in Czech and Slovak folklore is more of a trickster than a brute like the fiends and chorts of the Witcher universe. In fact, the mythological chort's mannerisms are reminiscent of the Sylvans from the Northern Kingdoms, only the chort is not quite as obese and gluttonous. Some sources, however, claim that the chort also appears in Turkic culture and their folklore. The Turkic people called the chort a chor or a chorabash. Chors were spiritual creatures and were mentioned in pre-Islamic texts and oral traditions. They were believed to inhabit an unseen world in dimensions beyond the visible universe of humans. While finding concrete sources and factual evidence for old superstitions and folktales is a treacherous task, this interpretation of the chort's powers sounds very much like the hypnotic trances of the fiends from the Northern Kingdoms. To take this one step further, the physical appearance of the chorts and fiends resembles a different beast of historical folklore altogether. The creature that comes to my mind is the depiction of the devil in the form of Baphomet, the goat. The precise origins of Baphomet isn't concrete, but this idol of the Sabbatic goat seems to have been adopted from Islamic beliefs by the Knights Templar, with traces of the controversial deity being documented from early in the First Crusade after some Christians inherited the idol from Islamic belief systems. Anyway, it is from the Witches' Sabbath that Baphomet seems to share similarities to the fiends and chorts. Baphomet the Goat of the Sabbath is the centerpiece to old heretical rituals involving the devil. I'm sure all of you know of the witch hunts taking place across the Western world during the early modern period of approximately 1500 to 1800 AD. I won't go too deeply into the history of the witches and the Witches' Sabbath, but I will talk a bit about their rituals, as this is where things get interesting. So, there are ritual elements involved in witchcraft, and in these rituals women would wander into the woods to gather, and to carry out all kinds of unholy acts. There was a famous book called Malleus Maleficarum, a treatise on witchcraft, written by a Catholic clergyman named Heinrich Kramer in 1486, which detailed the acts of witches, so that honourable men of God could more easily hunt down these wretched devil servants. From this book we get an example of one of these rituals from a man on trial. It reads, "And this is how we work. First, we use certain words in the fields to implore the chief of the devils to send one of his servants to strike the man whom we name. Then, when the devil has come, we sacrifice to him a black cock at 2 crossroads. While this is only one specific occurrence and wouldn't represent the goings-on at all satanic rituals, it seems clear that the presence of a demonic spectre is essential and blood sacrifice is always somehow involved. The foundation of witchcraft is establishing communication with the devil, who is believed to appear in a horned form, like a black goat. Actions like dancing in the woods or the consumption of blood usually conjure the goat, and shockingly there is an interesting secret from the Witcher 3 in the small settlement of White Orchard that seems strikingly similar to this. There was an exploit within this area that involved killing cows, selling their hides, meditating and repeating the cycle. This method was an easy means to make money. To counteract this exploit, a patch was added to the game. After killing 6 cows in White Orchard, a powerful level 27 chort will appear as punishment. And while this is obviously a fun anti-cheat tactic by the developers, I find the choice of a chort quite symbolic, even if it wasn't intended. Far from the cities, in a rural farmstead, spilling the blood of innocent beings summons a horned beast, with a name that literally means devil in Slavic mythology. And funnily enough, that same witch hunting handbook I mentioned before, the Malleus Maleficarum, suggests that witches could make cows ill and dry up their milk. It read, "And with regard to the manner whereby witches kill animals and cattle, it should be said that they act very much as they do in the case of men. They can bewitch them by a touch and a look, or by a look only, or by placing them under the threshold of the stable door, or near the place where they go to water, some charm or periapt of witchcraft. Supposedly, the witches could plight the people of God by tainting their flocks, killing their very livelihood, and doing so brought them closer to the devil and the black goat that marked his presence in the mortal realm. And in the Witcher universe, a chalk can be conjured after spilling the blood of the cattle. Geralt is a witcher, not a witch, and he's hardly dancing in the woods under the twilight, but still, the chalk with its third eye connecting it to the ethereal, and quite possibly to the hellish underworld, is brought to the mortal plane as if by magic when the blood price is paid. The parallels are too perfect to ignore. Maybe we should take this curiosity to the poor mirror merchant who can also conveniently be found in White Orchard. You know the one, that suspicious nobody with the ominous tone of voice and the seemingly impossible wealth of knowledge. I've heard Gaunter O'Dim is fond of games with a price, and something tells me he may know more about such blasphemous coincidences. Well, I hope you enjoyed my video on the Fiends and Chorts of the Northern Kingdoms. The lore and mythology of the Witcher series is bewitching at times and incredibly fun to speculate on. As always, I'd love to hear any theories as well as suggestions for future installments to my series. Thank you everyone for watching, and if you've hung around till the end and think it deserves one, give the video a like. Once again, my name is Drew, and I will see you next time.